It is Thursday, and that means it's time for another Throwback Thursday. Joining me today is Lori Kent with the Local Who Podcast.
Good morning.
All right, what are we talking about?
Well, this is one of those historical markers that if you don't know where it's located, you're not going to find it.
Oh.
It is just south of the Washington Pavilion in a parking lot. So it celebrates the life of Eliza Tupper Wilkes. And it is a life that needs to be celebrated. So Eliza, she was born in Maine in 1844. In her 20s, she marries William Wilkes, and they moved to Dakota Territory in 1878, where they have 6 kids. And if she was the average pioneer, that would be about what we would get to know about her life. But she was not the average pioneer woman. When her husband becomes a lawyer in 1871, it happens to be the same year that she's ordained. So she is like the first female minister in the Dakota Territory area, which is amazing. We're talking about the 1870s, and there's a woman going to preach at churches. This is huge news. And so she lives a really interesting life. So when they're in Sioux Falls, they aren't just in Sioux Falls. Her territory is Dakota Territory. She's going out to Rock Valley, Iowa. She's going to Laverne, Minnesota. Later in life, she even helps some churches out in California. So in her time, she is going to help found 11 different churches and religious organizations, which is a huge accomplishment. And her husband, William, he actually becomes a judge in the 1890s here, and he serves a couple terms, which is lucky for us because that means that the Wilkes family makes Sioux Falls their home base for a couple decades, and we totally benefit from this. So Eliza is a doer. She does so much in her lifetime. So she gets super into history, so obviously besties, and she helps found the history club, and from that she's going to start doing the library. Like, she starts laying the groundwork for the Carnegie Library to be here in Sioux Falls. She donates the first $50 of seed money. She buys the first books that we're gonna be spreading around the territory. And so she's just she's a force, really. And we're so lucky that, again, Sioux Falls is home base for a couple of decades. So her husband and her, they end up out in California a little bit later in life. She does a lot of work for suffragettes. Like, of course she wants women to vote. I mean, there's so many passions that she has in her lifetime, it's hard to condense them down. In 1909, her husband passes away. He's buried here in Sioux Falls. In 1917, she passes away, and her ashes are buried with her husband here at Mount Pleasant Cemetery in Sioux Falls. What's interesting about this, 2 different things. Her death certificate states her occupation as homemaker. Now, I'm not saying that she wasn't a good homemaker. I'm just saying of all the accomplishments in her lifetime, it kind of feels like a bummer that that's what makes it on the death certificate. And then the second bummer here is her grave remains unmarked for almost 100 years.
What?
So luckily, people that are excited about history and learn about Eliza Tupper Wilkes are also like, what? And so they come together, they get a historical marker for her, they come together, they donate money to get a headstone for her, they right those wrongs. But it's one of those where she almost faded into history. Wow. And it makes me wonder, like, how many other amazing women that we have in our history that have slowly faded away, that don't have historical markers, that don't have headstones, but they were here and they did some cool stuff.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you have a podcast on this?
I do.
Okay.
There's a new one out today. Yeah, you can check it out. The Historical Society, the Minnehaha County Historical Society Facebook page will have a link, or you can go to locallewpodcast.com.
Awesome. And then again, where is this marker located for people?
This marker, it's a fun one. You should go read it. It has so much more information than I talked about here. It has tons of info, and it's located just south of the Washington Pavilion in a parking lot.
Yeah. There you go. Well, thank you for being here this morning, Lori.
Thank you.
And we'll be back after the break.